2023 NBA playoffs has been an exciting one as we have seen some amazing playoff performances from some of the best players in the world. But the question today is, who is the best playoff performer in the 2023 playoffs? Now again, we've seen some spectacular performances as Butler, Curry, and Jokic each have 50-point games. Booker has been going off, and even James Harden has turned back the clock a little bit and putting up some impressive games. So with that, I decided to gather all of the best players remaining in this year's playoffs and determine who really is the best playoff performer. Of course, this does mean I excluded players who are no longer remaining, such as Giannis, Kawhi, and Luka. As for me, in order to be the best playoff performer, you actually have to be in the playoffs. So here are the initial list of candidates who were just selected based on the best regular season players, best playoff performance this year, and the best playoff performance in previous years, so I think it's fair game. Now this is quite a few players, so to limit the number of candidates, I used Basketball Reference's old reliable game score tool. And I did it so that in order to qualify for the best playoff performer this year, you need to have at least one game with a game score of 32. Now obviously this isn't the only measure of determining better playoff performers, but I felt it did a pretty good job at narrowing it down to the best performer so far. So with that, it drops the list from 13 down to 7. Now consistency is also a big factor in deciding who the best performer is. Anthony Davis and James Harden have not been consistent, so I'll have to eliminate both of them right off the bat. Now we're down to 5, and I think this is a very fair conversation as all of these players have put up some spectacular performances and have performed on a somewhat consistent basis. Now diving into this a little deeper, the weakest link within these 5 is probably Jason Tatum, who averages significantly less points than the other 4 candidates, and his efficiency lacks behind Booker, Butler, and Jokic. There are a few other factors such as his value and his impact on the game that also put him behind on this list, so I'll have to eliminate Tatum as well. The next player we'll look at is Steph, who erupted for 50 points in Game 7 against the Kings, which was an incredibly clutch performance. In terms of impact and scoring, Steph is certainly up there with these other players, but the reason I'm eliminating him is because his efficiency isn't on par, and his defense isn't on par as well to make up for it. I think when determining the best playoff performer, we have to take into account both ends of the floor, and unless you're absolutely dominating on offense, defense is very important as well. Now it's funny I bring up efficiency because the 3 remaining players, Jokic, Booker, and Butler, have the highest player efficiency ratings in the playoffs in that order. Now of course, I'm not going to base my decision off of PER, and in fact I'm going to eliminate Jokic, and here's why. These players are so even statistically in their own regards that the only possible way to differentiate them is by watching them play. Now Jokic fills up the stat sheet, but it's hard to place him above Booker and Butler when they are arguably doing more with less touches and less talent. Part of being the best playoff performer is elevating your team to win, and I think Butler and Booker do a better job at that for the aforementioned reasons. So now we're down to Devin Booker and Jimmy Butler, and this is actually really close. Booker has been an absolute menace on the offensive end, averaging 36.8 points on unbelievable efficiency. Jimmy Butler is not far behind, averaging 33.5 points, leading his 8th seed to a very likely Eastern Conference Finals appearance. Now I think in terms of offensive production, Devin Booker has been more consistent and his numbers are certainly undeniable. However, Jimmy Butler is certainly the better defender. And despite Booker putting up incredible offensive performances on a nightly basis, Butler has been the more clutch player. And in fact, Butler has been the most clutch player this playoffs, and averages the most points in the clutch. Now the advanced stats actually say that Booker has been more valuable than Butler over this year's playoffs, but it's hard to argue against the fact that Butler has led his 8th seed this far, and has only taken 2 losses in the process. So, with that being said, based on Butler's amazing playoff performances on both the offensive and defensive end, his ability to take over games in the clutch, and the fact that he's led his 8th seeded team this far, I'll have to take playoff Jimmy over D-Book in terms of the best playoff performer. Now this is a really close debate in my opinion, and I certainly wouldn't be mad if he chose D-Book. I mean, he's absolutely erupting on the offensive end. His true shooting percentage is I think north of 70%. So it's just been absolutely incredible for D-Book, but I think playoff Jimmy just has the slight edge based on his circumstances and his ability. With that being said, I'm interested to see who you think is the best playoff performer or if you even think it's D-Book or Playoff Jimmy. But that's my take, and that will do it for this video. I thank y'all for watching as usual, and I hope to see you in my next video. Take it easy.